Hey guys, and welcome to Monifactory Progression Log number 14. And I have a feeling this may be one of the longer videos in the series. We'll have to find out. It's been a significant rework of the base, probably the most significant rework of the base since we moved into this base. Um, it's been like the last week has, been transitioning into a post-tank base more thoroughly. So we've been actually using a lot of the space that was freed up by ripping out all those systems, as well as finally using all those resources and stuff. So I guess we'll go ahead and start off actually over here with the turbines. They're now using neutronium rotors over the HSSE ones. They actually increase these turbines from 1.4 ZPM amps to 2 ZPM amps each. So, and that's without changing the rotor holder. It's still a ZPM rotor holder. So I think, and if we go to a UV rotor holder, it should be 4 amps of ZPM each, and if we go to UHV rotor holder, I think it'd be 8 amps of ZPM. So they actually scale better than the Naquita reactors. I mean, they also do have the downside of needing to spin up, so they don't start off, just like, flick on, flick off kind of thing for power. But with neutronium rotors, we also really don't have to replace the rotors, so the HSSE, so we can look at the rotors, right? We were using the HSSE rotors, which have 205,600 durability, and now we're using the neutronium rotors. The neutronium rotors have 4.8 million durability. It's about 23 times the durability they're much more efficient, and they provide much more power than the power multiplier than the HSSE rotors. And the HSSE rotors had, I think it was around 56 hours of durability. So the neutronium rotors should have a lot. A lot, like 1,000 hours or something around that mark, something like that, of durability. So I don't actually think I'll have to replace the neutronium rotors. And it's also, we don't even, neutronium is not a problem. So we can, even if for some godforsaken reason we actually do have to replace the rotors, it's not going to be an issue. And as you can see over here, one of the major reworks of the base, and one that was long time coming, was a rebuild of the HNN area as well as the PPM line. That had been set up with HV machines before we even have factory floor 1 up, I believe. I know I built it with MV when we moved into the base, and then I rebuilt it with HV fairly soon after that. And then I just never touched it. I legitimately hadn't touched it in like 2 months or something like that. 400 hours of gameplay or so. 350 hours of gameplay maybe. So I hadn't touched it in a while, and it was only barely stumbling along what we needed. The only reason it was still working was because we had very quickly moved away from New Mystics, so we didn't have too much. So when we moved away from New Mystics, I ripped out all the extra ones, and we haven't really been relying on HNN too much for more than Ender Pearls, and it was starting to fail on giving us Ender Pearls. So we were running out pretty consistently, to the point where I think it was probably last week. I was running. There's an Ender Pearl block micro miner mission, and this is what I was doing for Ender Pearls for a little bit. Because we were eating them. I don't know where they were going, but we just didn't have them available. So I had to run this miner a bunch for the Ender Pearls. So that was a little bit unfortunate. And once we, got Heart of the Universes and stuff, and we were able to produce a lot of those, each one of these things takes a Heart of the Universe. They really are quite expensive. They're effectively a post-tank thing, especially since they also take a bunch of Omnium blocks. You're not really reliably going to be able to build these things until you get post-tank. If you're in expert mode or hard mode, I know expert mode removes tank. I don't know if hard mode removes tank. But if you don't have tank, good luck, I guess. That's all I have to say. But these were incredibly expensive, and let me tell you though about how I set this up. This whole video is going to be me showing you how I set up all these passive multi-blocks, and it makes me feel incredibly clever. So we'll go ahead and get started with, we'll start over here. So I know it looks very complicated and very colorful at first, but it's actually, once you understand what it's doing, it's pretty simple, I think. So this takes advantage of the stocking input buses. These things are fucking amazing. I never really had a chance to use them too much. I used them in the ore processing line, but I haven't really been using them too much in any other places. And now that I've been switching over to a lot of multi-block passive systems. They are incredible. They're so good. I love them. Um, so how this works is we have a stocking input bus, and for those who don't know, stocking input buses, when you select this, they will automatically pull every item they can see. Well, when I say pull, I mean read them. They don't actually physically remove the item from the inventory that they are stored in. It can simply just use those items for recipes that it runs. So, for example, you can see how it's pulled a Guardian data model into it. That Guardian data model is still in this barrel. It hasn't actually been pulled from it. So, it can always read this Guardian data model. So, it always has that in there. And what we actually do is we use a combination. So, we use toggle buses down here. And what toggle buses do is when they are unpowered by redstone, they physically cut off that AE network here. This is just straight up disconnected from mainnet. So how this works, as we can see over here, because this one's active, what this one does is we have a ME threshold level emitter set to wither predictions, so it'll keep wither predictions between 200 and 50,000. So when it drops below 200, it will turn this on until it goes above 50,000, and while that is active, it will turn on this toggle bus. And when this toggle bus is on, it will pull pulsating prediction matrices from the network. And the storage bus can see them. So the stocking bus can see them because it's on the stocking bus network, purple network. It's purple or pink net here. So pink net only has two storage things, so it can only see the barrel with the wither data model, and this interface with 4 stacks of pulsating prediction matrices. So it automatically pulls those into it, set to distinct buses, and then it just runs recipes with it. And as soon as it stops working, it will turn this off, the interface will get drained, and then it won't be able to pull any more items, so then it turns off. And that is how all of these things run, effectively. Basically, we are using toggle buses to turn off interfaces, so the stocking buses don't see anything anymore, and can't pull any more items, so they just don't run any more recipes, because we just turned off. Rather than attempting to toggle the machine off, or attempting to use controllers in the stocking bus, actually, machine controllers don't even work on stocking buses and hatches, for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a feature that is planning to be added, or intentional, or a bug, or I don't know. But they don't actually do anything. Anyway, so by cutting off the items, they can't do anything anymore. And it means, because part of the problem I was thinking about this was, how do you, make a multi-block stop working if you can't just turn it off with like a redstone signal? And the answer is you just don't feed it any more items. And so yeah, we have this one works like that. This is the loop fabricator, and this one works like this as well. It just has a lot more, and we need multiple of them, unfortunately, because each bus can only do one circuit. And these simulation chambers and the loop fabs have some pretty restrictive minimum casing requirements. They have a minimum of 40 casings, so you can't really add too many of the stocking input buses. This is as many as you can get. You can get 5 stocking input. You can effectively replace 6 casings with. So you can replace 6 casings with buses, assuming you have 1 auto maintenance hatch, 1 parallel hatch, and 1 energy hatch, and that's all you can get on there. So. They're pretty restrictive, so I did need multiple for all the circuits, for the various circuit numbers that we need to produce all the items that we need from over here. But this just works the same way, like threshold emitters. I'm using threshold emitters so the toggle buses don't toggle on and off constantly. I don't want them flickering. It's been mentioned to me that every time it does this, it recalculates the AE network. which can be a little bit of a TPS hog. This base is actually quite TPS efficient at this stage. We're still on the average between like 16 and 19 or so. That we have every now and then we do get massive spikes where the server just chugs to like 8 TPS, and I have been unable to figure out why exactly. I have observable, and I added that to the server, and that hasn't been helpful. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out. But anyway, so yeah, more multi blocks like this. I felt incredibly clever. This is a very time-consuming thing to do, but we have access to. Actually, we even have access to the next tier of parallel hatch, I believe. I believe we can get the 256 one, can't we? Oh yes, we have the one. We have the super parallel control hatch. So we can actually get access to this one, though I haven't really been using it on most of these things, just because it's kind of insane. And none of these HNN things here are so throughput heavy that they actually need it. Maybe I'll swap these ones out for the super control hatches at another point, but I think at that point it's power that's the limiter at this stage rather than the parallel control hatch or items and stuff. But yeah, then they all get dumped into a subnet here. Yellow net or gold net, as I think of it, is like where all the goodies are stored. So gold net is where the level emitting is done. It's also where the items are stored into the output bus, and main net can read off the items in it somewhere in this mess of cables. I know it looks bad, but here it is. You can see down here. Mainnet does extract only on this, so GoldNet can't dump blindly into mainnet. It gets stored on the drives, and mainnet can pull from it. So for some things, like if we go ahead and look at the multi-block passive room, this is where the old LCRs were. I have even more in here. We have circuit assemblers over here. We have a regular assembler, and in here we have a wire packer. The wire packer was actually the first one that I did. This was my first attempt at a system, so it's horizontal, which means it took up a lot of space. I actually kind of need to rebuild this and point it downwards so I can use more of the space up there, because it has effectively taken up the entire machine pad, which is something I don't really want to do. But this works the exact same way as I mentioned before. We just have ME threshold emitters. Uh, the threshold emitters on toggle buses, which then feed it items, which then get pulled into stalking buses with distinct buses and set to a circuit number. This will do virtually this does all the cables or I guess wires that we use in the base pretty much. If it got used on demand or we needed it passively for whatever reason, it gets packed here. Instead of needing to use like passive wire mills, if we want to set up like individual wire mills or downcraft or something like that, I decided to set up a multi-block a wire packer here. Admittedly, this problem could have been solved with 400 molecular assemblers. With just crafting all the cables, all the wires down, but that would have been a lot of space. And at the time, the reason why I did this was because I was thinking about a system like this for level emitting the microverse projectors. I didn't want one microverse projector per recipe. That would be a lot of space, and I wanted to do something a little bit smarter than that. Because I thought it would be an interesting and fun thing. But I wanted something that was a little bit more of a simpler task, as well as something that would have been useful, as if we did want to put micro miners and other things on passive, as well as just other things around the base, we needed 1x wire, and we passive 16x wire from the big passive array, as you guys can see. I'll go ahead and show that in a little bit, but so we had all these 16x's, so we needed to craft down from 16x's to 1x, and that would have been multiple molecular assemblers or one step in a wire packer, which I thought would be cool. So this was the first attempt, and it worked out very well. This isn't all the storage monitors here aren't all the things that are in here. There we have the list of everything in here. I'm not gonna lie. When I was first messing around with some of the 2x ones, I messed up some threshold emitters, and it just ran through a bunch of magnesium diboride, samarium iron, and manganese phosphide. And I also fucked up N-steel for a moment. And it's so fast that even like leaving it running, I think it was probably running for about 10 minutes before I realized. Like I was like, why is it like blocked up on something? And we now have a lot of that stuff. So we don't need any more of that stuff. So I doubt that'll turn on again. But yeah, so this was a lot of fun, and I've done something similar over here. For circuit assemblers. The reason why I've done this for circuit assemblers is I'm fucking sick and tired of having to rebuild the clean room. I've only rebuilt it a couple of times, and it sucked every time every time I did it. When I did it in ATM 9, I always put it off because it was always just a real pain in the ass. I just really didn't want to do it. Because because every time you hit like a new circuit here, for example, like we're looking down the barrel of like matter processors, for instance, and matter processors, not this recipe. Yeah, this recipe requires, a UV circuit assemblers. It also requires, the matter processing unit, which requires the mnemonic circuit boards, which is another, UV clean room circuit assembler recipe. And that would mean I would need to make a bunch of fucking UV circuit assemblers, and it would have to replace all those things and rewire it all. And I was just not interested in doing that, especially since I would need to do that, I'm sure, a couple of more times as we move forward into, UV circuit assemblers, and then EV circuit assembler, or, UV circuit assemblers, UHV, UEV, and then maybe even UIV circuit assemblers at a certain stage. I just was not really interested in doing that, and I know circuit assemblers can take the clean room hatch. You can just toss like massive energy hatches on them and really just plow through recipes, as well as use parallel recipes and stuff too. Um, so I was like, well, why not do it with circuit assemblers? As I had done, the wire packer, and then I did HNNN over here, and then I came down to do these ones. We also have two more down over here for the cutter and the laser engraver. This was also particularly important as the laser engravers are EV, and as we are using neutronium wafers fairly soon, we actually had neutronium wafers. We managed to get those. The problem is, they're used only in IV minimum. So going forward with them, I would have had to rebuild the laser engravers and the cutters again with IV. And then once we got microverse ones, which we can sort of technically do, it's actually universal, I think. Yes. If we wanted to do this one, which we can sort of do, I just have to, actually go build those things. I believe these laser engravers are, UV and LUV and ZPM and shit. So I was not really interested in having to rebuild just rebuild all of it again. So it was like, again, why not do it the smart way with multi-blocks that can do all the clean room hatches, that can do all the clean room recipes with the cleaning hatch. They can take a parallel hatch and do some of the lower recipes, like for example, NAND chips we've always been struggling with pretty heavily. They're used in a ton of different things, and they're used in very large amounts in those things that they do get used in, and so it's an absolute pain. I spent so much time waiting for them actually, in the clean room for various circuits and stuff. So we want to do those pretty quickly, and we can with that. This is a UV, and we can always overclock that to UHV. We have UHV energy hatches actually as well. What's really interesting about the UHV energy hatches is normally with energy hatches, they require a voltage coil. So if we look at like UV energy hatch, for example, they require the ultimate voltage coils, and these require UV. So you have to make a single block assembler before you can basically set your assembler, your multi-block assembler to UV. And because you only give the multi-block assembler one energy hatch, and you can't overclock to a higher tier recipe without two energy hatches. It's a function of two energy hatches. Even if you gave it 4 amps, for example, of UV of ZPM power or whatever, it still wouldn't produce UV recipes. It'd only do it at UV speeds. So if you want to like upgrade a multi-block assembler normally to a higher tier of voltage, you would have to use 2 hatches, but you can't do that. So you have to make a multi-block. You have to make a single block assembler to make the voltage coils, which then allows you to make the energy hatch, then to overclock. However, for UHV energy hatches, that is not the case. There is no voltage coil beyond UHV energy hatches. Like, I believe, let's see. Then there's like UEV. EV energy hatch. This doesn't require a voltage coil either, and going forward UIV. So that means we no longer have to make single block assemblers that we use for literally 10 seconds or whatever, however long it takes to make the first voltage coil, and then immediately just dump it into the multi-block assembler and forget about it, which is very nice. It means tearing up through the energy hatches is a little bit quicker with a little bit less grunt work, which is very nice. I'm very happy with it. So we have UHV energy hatches. UEV energy hatches require activated netherite, which actually we can do, because we actually also have. I'm a little bit all over the place today, guys. That's my bad. Sorry, I woke up very late again. We have activated netherite line. Credit where credit is due. I didn't build this. Cosmic built this. She got back on and was able to spare some time to get some of the stuff working, and it works fucking fantastic. It's great. It's all subnetted and stuff too. Just down here, it's like the normal stuff where, extract only, so they can't, push items into each other, but they can pull from as needed. It's not too bad. Right now, this is blocked up because we don't have any exquisite diamonds because we have to add that to the laser engraver. I should also mention that I didn't build the laser engraver or the cutter. Cosmic did that too. But we do have to add more recipes, which is a little bit time consuming the way it has to be set up. But it's not too bad. And once you set it up, it's just fire and forget. It means that if we actually have to upgrade it to a higher tier recipe, it's as simple as swapping an energy hatch, which is amazing. We also, as you guys can see here, have the Omnic Forge. This is a endgame multi-block used to make some very interesting things. You can use it to make dimensional stabilized netherite casings. You also need it for the activated netherite as well. You use it in the Skulk Bio alloy line, which will be interesting. Omnic coils, which are the best coils in the game. You use it for like a lot of the infinity stuff as well. So this going forward, we're going to be using a lot of these things. This one is more or less just for activated netherite line. They are pretty expensive to make, though, and only in that we have our buffers are pretty slow, and we're using kind of they require UHV circuits and a bunch of ZPM circuits. It's mostly the UHV circuits, I believe, or it's the ZPMs, because it's the ZPM circuits that's the problem. And not because they're expensive, but because their buffer is pretty small. I probably should just go upgrade the buffer. But we're not that far away from getting the matter processors, which is the best ZPM circuit recipe. So we have matter processors, right? Which is the best tier ZPM circuit recipe. This one here, which we're actually not too far away from doing. We have, the matter processing units, which we need crystal matrix foil, activated netherite, which we now have. Matter circuit boards, which requires omnium, which is not a problem. And polyethyl cyanoacrylate, which I had to do over this week, and this was so annoying. So the problem with cyanoacrylate pulp is that it's made with a bunch of fluids, right? So all of these, because we have tank, fluids are free. It's just a very time-consuming recipe. We're running this at ZPM. Actually, hold on, it's a perfect overclock. So it's about 37 and a half seconds, per run. So it's pretty slow. But it's literally free because it uses a bunch of fluids. However, we have to get one bucket first before we can tank it. And let me tell you, this was an absolute pain in the ass. Right, we have to do cyanoacetic acid, which requires a bunch of this other crap, which requires chloroacetic acid, which requires this electrolyzing dichloroacetate, which comes from chloroacetic mixture, which requires all this crap, and then acetic anhydride, which requires ethanone, so I set up a tiny LCR, I set up one LCR, and just straight up hand batched my way to getting one bucket. And we even have a bunch of like the precursors and stuff. So we have like uncracked ethyl acrylate that we don't need anymore, like ethanone, ethanone or whatever. We have a bunch of that stuff now, and dimethyl sulfoxide, even though you only need half a bucket of that stuff. It was an absolute pain in the ass. But it's done now. So we have that. So we can actually get matter processors. I just have to set up all the recipes and stuff, which won't be too bad. yeah, so we have, activated netherite line here. So we have a decent stockpile of that. We have about just short of 3,000 ingots. Once I get exquisite diamonds back on passive, we'll be fine on that one too. Over here we have terbium line, which is also something you can't tank either. Both activated netherite and terbium don't have liquid forms, so you just can't tank them, which is, I assume, the point. Um, terbium is a little bit annoying, but not too bad. The biggest part is you have to figure out how you need rare earth salt, which comes from rare earth oxide, which comes from an EBF with rare earth sulfate, which just comes from electrolyzing rare earth with sulfuric acid. Um, how we get rare earth over here is we electrolyze, or yes, we electrolyze monazite dust. Uh, I didn't actually set this up either. I believe we electrolyze autoclave. Well, we basically turn monazite into rare earth. As the ore processing system produces monazite, if we grind it into dust, and then you can electrolyze the monazite dust into rare earth and phosphate, and I assume we just trash the phosphate. I don't actually, like I said, credit where credit is due. I didn't build this system. Um, like I said, Cosmic got some big work done, some big money plays over the week. Terbium and activated netherite are some pretty important lines going forward. There's a few materials we'll need in total. Another material line that we'll have to do at some point is holium. I don't know how you spell that anymore. Uh, oh, it's holmium. There we go. Is the holmium line, and this is an interesting one. Magnetic capacitor from ruined hull, which from alien scrap. This requires a tier 11 miner with some shattered universe data and some infinity catalysts, so we won't be doing this for a while. But this is another recipe or another material line that we'll have to do for some interesting materials, like for example holmium. And then we have the crown behemoth of horrible lines is else. Let's see, it's actinate, I think it's. Yes, here we go. So flawless Eltic actinate dust. And this stuff is an absolute unbelievable pain in the ass. It's also incredibly expensive power-wise. So it requires, shiny metal power and Eltic crystal seeds. Saturated water won't be a problem because we have tank. Which requires clean inert. To get the crystal seed is a chance drop from clean inert clusters, which is extracted from 3 saturated inert clumps, which comes from a chemical bath of inert clumps, which comes from inert dust mixture, which comes from putting a large chemical reactor with reactive dust mixture. This is done at UIV, so this is probably legitimately one of the most power expensive recipes in the game. Using 1 amp of UIV, which is more than twice. This one recipe alone consumes more than twice what our generators can produce at full throttle. So, which is going to be a problem. In terms of power generation late game, it comes down to either overclocking the fuck out of your plasma turbines with higher tier energy hedge or rotor holders, or the large Naquita reactor. The large Naquita reactor produces about 1 amp of UIV. So we need one of these things to power one of the reactive dust mixture recipes. um, so that would be a problem, or that would be, I guess, a challenge. We have to, build maybe a couple of these things. So we don't really have the room right now for more than 2. That was including if we tore out our turbines, unless we started stacking them. But the turbines might produce a lot of power and might be easier to spam than, for example, the large Naquita reactors. The depleted fuel rods we'll just throw away because they don't actually produce any resources that we want. Naquita waste doesn't produce anything that we cannot get via tank. Everything here we have tanked, so none of this stuff is important. So there's not any point in spending power on actually, recycling the rods unless we want to reuse the actual fuel rods, which aren't even that expensive themselves here. Like, all this stuff again is tanked. Like, I guess the only thing you want to save is like time, I guess. But you know, so maybe we'll just throw them away so we don't have to deal with them. But yeah, so we have a few more material lines to go, and then we'll be more or less done with a lot of the end game materials, and from then it's just crafting stuff. So I think we're getting fairly close to the end of Monifactory. I'm not exactly sure how much longer we have. I would imagine like a month, just because we do have a bunch of miners and stuff we have to do. We have to get like the tier 11 still. And this requires UEV stuff, so we have to get to UEV. A lot of this other materials aren't too bad, just mostly time-consuming stuff. We already have all that on demand. We have this stuff might be also kind of annoying, but we have most of this stuff. We actually, the only thing here I'll have to do to get this stuff on passive is to passive the iridium neutron reflectors and the dense crystal plates, which we have all this stuff as well on passive. So, like I mentioned before. So it's not too bad. I think we're fairly close. It's mostly going to be about scaling up and building more of these kind of expensive multi-blocks. And the big thing is also going to be going up in circuit tiers. So there's let's see, processors. So after we have the matter processor, we have the dimensional processor. And this will start requiring the complex SMD things, which does require holmium. So we will have to do that fairly soon. Once we get past matter processors, and once we really start needing like the UEV, well, this is a UEV circuit, so once we want the UIV circuits, we'll definitely have to do holmium. After the last circuit tier are the monic processors, and this is going to be also some interesting stuff. Contained singularity will be neat. Singularity containment units will require some UEV stuff. Monium, which is another this can only be done in a hyperbolic microverse projector with the tier 12 miner, oh, I forgot, we actually have the infinity material line as well. So we have holmium, else, and infinity going forward. So we have a few more lines to do, and as where we're going to put them, I'm still not entirely sure. We have some room over here. This will probably get used for else at some point. There's a lot of space here. I'm sure there's room here for holmium, maybe. Holmium doesn't seem to be too much of a complex line. Else seems to be extremely complex of a line. So I'm not exactly sure where some of this stuff is going to go. We might see some more base expansion. Some of the last base expansion in the game, possibly. I don't think we have a desire for or a need for too much more room. But we still will likely need a few more, since we've actually obviously kind of tapped out on some of the other spaces that we've used at least out here. We still do have some more room in the DMC, as we did tear out a bunch of these lines. Over here, I guess we can come down here and talk about it now that I'm down here. So I have set up, this is where I did some level limiting on the miners, on the micro miners here. This appears to not be running for some reason. I am not entirely sure why you are not running. Maybe it's because of some recipe conflict. Will you run now? Yes, okay. So I may actually have to fiddle with this a little bit more. So I did build another microverse projector down here that was different from the on-demand one. I'm not entirely sure if that was necessary, because anything that I would want to run on demand, I would also just want to level limit. So I'm not sure if I actually need this secondary one down here, and might just leave it here. Once I get to the hyperbolic projector, just rip all of them out and just use that one, because that would just have one multi-block, because that one can do all of the recipes. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what's worth having another one around here. And I think the hyperbolic projector, we're not like too far away. We do need some UEV circuits. So once we get to UV field generators and UHV emitters, all of this stuff, which I have to basically set up actinium, which is less of a material line and more of like a clay line kind of thing. It's not. So here, let me tell you. You can get actinium a couple of ways. You can get actinium nuggets from centrifuging depleted Californium fuel, but I don't really want to deal with more nuclear craft. Okay, and it's actually not even that much actinium. It's less actinium than I guess it's like 1/3 of an ingot versus 1/4. So it's a tiny fraction more. than just doing it this way with an electrolyzer. And all of these fluids are free, and will get thrown away. So the only thing we'll care about is the actinium itself. And the neutron emitters, this was actually why I set up polyethyl cyanoacrylate, was specifically to start putting these things on passive, and also partially why I set up the assembler multi-block on passive, because I'm like, oh, another circuit, another assembler tier, that's a pain in the ass. I am kind of sick of having to rebuild all our passive lines every couple, like at this point, almost every tier. A lot of earlier on, we didn't have a lot of things that we wanted to put on passive weren't particularly gated by voltage. We didn't rebuild factory floor 1, for instance, for a long time, and it was less because of I had to and more of I just wanted to pull some stuff out rather than being gated on voltages. But now that we are being gated on voltages fairly regularly, I am so sick of looking down. We actually recently rebuilt factory floor 1 again. We ripped a bunch of it out, and I have a few things to mention about this. The reason why we put a bunch of stuff down here and we rebuilt it all to LUV was specifically to put tier 3 micro miners on passive. And you guys have noticed we have 2,673,094 tungsten carbide micro miners. You may be thinking, Robo, that's a fucking lot of them. How did you make so fucking many of them? And there's something you guys should know about. We actually removed the setup here, but we were using the auto crafting tables from extended crafting, and it was just straight up duplicating them at a ridiculous rate. I accidentally crashed the server once, as I was like, I didn't really see that it had 2.67 million items, and I wanted to move it, and I broke it, and then the whole server froze, and then I checked the tooltip, and then I saw I just broken a block with, almost 3 million items in it, and I was like, oh shit. Fortunately, the server booted back up fine, so we had to move it all, but it did duplicate a shitload of miners. And I was thinking that we would want to keep them around because I was worried that if we attempted to set up the auto crafter again, it would just duplicate them again, and what was the point? But honestly, now that I've been thinking about it, I'm just gonna go ahead and void them. I don't really want to. It feels bad, and also I just picked up the requesters, so we can just add it down here to the requesters. And I am not really a huge fan of relying on our on-demand systems for our passive systems using requesters. We could have been using them for a while. But also, I've put a bunch of these components on passive. So it's basically the only thing it's doing for on-demand stuff is effectively the actual extended crafting steps itself, which are fine. So I'm going to try and put as many of those things on passive and let on-demand do the extended crafting, because I don't want to deal with all that duplication shit again. So this is fine, and it also means that, I can kind of crutch a little bit. I don't really want to, but it means I can, so I don't have to set up a passive discharger or anything. I might have it keep a certain number of the various abyssal cores and Hadal cores and things that Hadal energy cores and the abyssal energy cores, and actually, wasn't there one of these things that needed to be done in a skull charger? Oh, it did. Okay, it was the Hadal warp engines. So these things might be done, kept just done on demand in one stage, or it might be done with the requesters as well. The requesters we've actually had for a while. They're gated behind ZPM. So we've been able to do them for quite some time now. A couple of weeks, I think, or at least 2 weeks or something like that. Whenever we hit ZPM, which was quite a while ago. We just haven't really needed them, and I just kind of have I kind of don't like, using crafting cards or their equivalents, mostly. But, it's better to do it this way, and especially since it doesn't run for very long. Especially for the lower tier ones and stuff too, as you guys can see, it's instantly doing the tungsten carbide ones, because every component we have that goes into them besides the extended auto crafting stuff or the extended crafting is done on demand, like I mentioned, so it's fine. Our drive bay has also expanded again. We've been putting lots and lots of stuff in here. We have just an absolute monstrous amount of fluids. And this is where I've also been storing, like when I ripped out old subnets and stuff, this is where I dumped those drives. So I've had to add more room. We have a ton of drives in here. And yeah. All right. What else? I guess we can go back down to the DMC. I'm sure there's some more stuff in there we can talk about. So I started ripping out indium lime again. Or I ripped out indium lime, I should say, instead of started. And it's not again. So we don't need this anymore since that we have indium phosphate. We have all that stuff on fluids, so we're also tanking that stuff. So we don't need it anymore, and I'm going to use it for LCRs. So we have one line of LCRs. I only have room for a couple of more, and I might want to get holmium line in here or something, or add some more, material lines. So I do want to use this space for LCRs, but hopefully we won't need too much more. All this stuff can get thrown away. We don't need any of this stuff, and I've been moving a lot of so we've been moving away from the clean room, more or less. Is like one of the themes that we've been doing. Is I don't really want to have to keep rebuilding it, and in the clean room you don't really have room for multi-blocks, and if you're putting multi-blocks in the clean room, why not just put them outside of the clean room, because we do have access to the cleaning room, the cleaning hatches. So I've been putting the LCRs down here, so I've been trying to consolidate most of them throughout the base. Terbium and activated netherite have their own dedicated LCRs, which is fine. They more or less should be on those subnets. So that works just fine. But I moved like nano CPU wafers in here. I moved PPM line down here as well. With those, obviously you guys saw that where we were making PPM before is now where the simulation chambers are. We were kind of running out of room between the simulation chambers and the loop fabricators, and now that they're all multi-blocks and stuff, I wanted to leave plenty of room. And especially since I ripped out virtually all of the LCRs in the base, we had plenty of room to move them down here, and they're ridiculously fast. It's great. And so over here we have some more stuff too. So I know I've mentioned tank, and we have lots of materials on tank. One of the few things that we cannot tank is graphene, and so graphene cannot be tanked. There's no liquid form of graphene. And one of the problems we were having with graphene was actually graphite dust. We never really had too much of this stuff to begin with, but we didn't really use all that much of it. But then because we put it on the same passive buffer as all the other materials that we could tank, we chewed through all the graphite in like 2 minutes or whatever. However, what you can get graphene from, or I should say graphite, is you can get graphite from you can get it from a hydrofluoric graphitic tantalum solution. And you can centrifuge this for graphite dust. And obviously it's a fluid, so we can tank that. So this is what we set up over here. We have a centrifuger that's just centrifuging the hydrofluoric tantalum solution. We're just throwing away the tantalum solution. We don't need any of that stuff. And we just we have a quantum chest that's full of, is this voiding? No, it's not voiding. Or it's probably almost full. How much does a quantum chest... I'm curious. Oh, okay, so it's half full. So we have, graphite unpassive that way, and then this mixer does graphene. We have a bunch of multi-smelters over here for various things. For example, graphene ingots here. Pulsating dust, the whole PPM line over here, as well as terracotta and glass. We don't actually make, before in PPM line we made nether quartz from glass, because early on that's the best way to do it. But now that we have mega ore processing, and we also have ancient debris on demand through the tungsten miners you saw before, that was the reason why we had put them on passive, was specifically so we could get ancient debris not on demand, but passive for activated netherite line. And a byproduct of getting ancient debris is nether quartz ore. If we come over here and look at the recipe, you get 64 nether quartz ore. So we get 16 stacks of nether quartz ore per one of those recipes, and we run a lot of those recipes. So we don't actually need intellectualized glass, but we do use glass in the base, obviously, as well as terracotta. So I set these up over here on passive as well, since they were on passive in the old PPM line, and I wanted to put them back. And this stuff is super duper fast. Using Naquita coils is like 256 passive, and all of these recipes are like 1 tick. Which is why you guys are watching them flicker on and off. So yeah, that's mostly the DMC. I've also ripped out all these machines over here. We don't need any of these extractors, and we don't really need any of this stuff either. Like anything we get over here, we don't really care about. Like quicklime, I don't even think gets used for anything. I don't believe we need quicklime at this stage. Uh, oh, maybe for calcium carbide. I think we actually use calcium carbide in. Oh, it's calcium hydroxide gets used in Prussian blue. As we do have the Skulk bioalloy we have to do. That is for UIV or UEV materials, I believe. And Skulk, I remember a while ago, just a couple weeks ago, I talked about how he didn't need Prussian blue. And this, maybe I wasn't on camera. But I was looking at Prussian blue and thinking, oh, do we actually need to make this? Because a while ago when I was setting up ore processing, it seemed like rock salt was only really used in this, and I saw that Prussian blue was used in making radaway dust. One thing I didn't see was that small pile of Prussian blue dust is actually used in making Skulk bioalloy. And that means we actually do need rock salt. So this is something that I have to go get on passive again, either by rolling some miners again, or just by rolling some more micro miners and doing it that way and changing some more processing. But it looks like that the calcium hydroxide in this line was recycled, so I don't know if I actually need the quicklime on passive anymore. So we'll have to see if I need to keep this. It's likely not. I might just void everything except the quicklime and have it on a massive centrifuge or whatever, and just ignore everything else. But yeah, so I have some more space over here if I need it. Some crafters over here changed as well. We put the various empty cores on passive. Nether stars come from the block of nether stars since we have those we have those tanked. This was where I was originally making. So you can actually get blocks of when I set up. Let's see, you can get a block of ruthenium from a microminer mission. And this is where we got our warden hearts from at the time. So I was down crafting these various useful blocks into their ingot forms, but obviously we don't need them anymore. This is where we turn Nequadria ingots into the Nequadria nuggets as you use these, or small dust in making enriched bacterial sludge. This is the better recipe. There's 3. You can use U235, regular uranium dust for 1-to-1, or you can use Nequadria dust for 1-to-2. At the time, that was very useful because we didn't have unlimited fluids, and now that we do, it's kind of pointless. And this is where I was downcrafting ender pearl blocks into ender pearls when I needed it. So I have a lot more space, open space over here for molecular assemblers. So I'm hoping we don't need too many more. I might move we do have a bunch of these all throughout the base, especially for things like thrusters. So I'm not sure if I want to move them all down here. And have them in one spot, or just leave them where they are. Probably just leave them where they are because I don't really feel like moving them. They're fine where they are. But I do want to put the thrusters on passive. I'm kind of sad they don't have an assembler recipe. We have some of the thrusters on passive, like the reinforced ones, because we need those for the tier 3 microminers. But as I do want to have the other ones passive as well, or at least mostly passive as well, I'm going to have to find space to passive all these other ones as well, like Dark Solarium and stuff. We have to tier all the way up, so that'll be interesting. Alright, so that's down here. Like I said, this has been almost a complete overhaul of the base. We've ripped out a lot of the systems throughout the base. We've started replacing them. I think the biggest change overall is the move towards the multi-blocks for passive systems, and using some fancy AE cabling to get them to work that way. That's been saving us a lot of space throughout the base, as well. Being able to move away from the single block saves room on the factory floors. As well as preventing me from having to rebuild this clean room for the 4 millionth time. I really do hate the clean room. Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. Ooh, some tea. I really am. ATM 9 really kind of burned me out on wanting to rebuild clean rooms, and that's just like legitimately one of the least fun things I think you have to do in GregTech. I really don't like that, but sometimes you just it has to be done, right? But I'm glad I won't have to rebuild this again. I can just leave. I can just tear pretty much all of this stuff out at this stage. We don't need any of this stuff. We don't need any of this stuff. The advanced autoclave. This might get moved to another autoclave somewhere. Um, Actually, I might be able to. Where am I autoclave? I know I'm over here. I'm autoclaving something else. Ah, yes. I moved carbon fibers over here as well. Oh, I guess now that I'm here, we can go ahead and talk about what's over here. I forgot what was over here. Or you know what? Nothing was over here for a while. When I had torn out a bunch of stuff on Hubris, once we moved, I know of. Well, actually, I remember what was over here. This is where biotite line was. We had biotite line here for a while when we had needed fluorine gas when it wasn't infinite, and now that it is infinite, we didn't need it anymore. So I ripped all of it out, and this is where the sand part of passive sand comes from. Obviously, we were making passive sand. We were actually making it in two different places. We were making it in the ppm line as well as when we were centrifuging endstone dust over here. But this turns off because this is level not level emitted, but blocks up on helium gas, which we don't need anymore. So that doesn't work anymore. So our only source of passive sand was ppm line. But obviously, since I tore all that out, I needed to move it somewhere, and I wanted it super duper fast. So I have three large material presses set to forge hammers here. I thought about maybe doing it recursively and only using one, but I wasn't really going to put anything else over here. So I just decided to do three, so for maximum speed. And it's all on a little subnet too, and just grinds its way through a bunch of sand, gravel, and to dust. Cobblestone to gravel, gravel to sand, sand to dust. And this is where we have all that stuff. Over here, actually, one thing we were when I had set up a graphene line, we had millions of carbon dust. We were fine on carbon dust. We didn't really care about it. However, when I got on, like the day after, we had burned through almost all of the carbon dust we had. We had a few million or something before, and coming out of towards the end of filling up that buffer, we had only a few 100,000. And our one passive source of carbon dust was electrolyzing methane. And we were electrolyzing methane in a single HV electrolyzer for I don't know how long. Actually, I know how long, since I rebuilt Petrochem. And that was a while. That was good enough for a while, and it wasn't good enough anymore. So I now have a large electrolysis chamber here, actually with the super parallel hatch running at UV. So this is like a one-tick recipe, and we have now 42.5 million carbon dust. So we're good over here. But what's nice about the electrolyzer here is we do have another electrolyzer recipe to do, as I mentioned earlier, for actinium. So I can wall share some casings over here, and it'll be, we'll have a wall of electrolyzers. So I might move some of these other things as well from over here, away from over here. Like maybe, for instance, I might move the rock crystal chip to put the other forge hammer right here, as we do have room for a fourth. And rip out some of these other spaces here, so I can put another another autoclave for Lapotron crystals, so I continue to pull more things out of the clean room. I think actually at this stage we can rip out almost everything that's in here. I still might leave some single block assemblers in here for some things, though that's highly unlikely. As I will probably just use multi-blocks for everything. In terms of, for like higher tier circuits, I'm not because before I've either been like, for example, we do have UHV circuits. We have the wetware mainframes and the wetware supercomputers. Those are on demand because they are pretty expensive, and I didn't really want to put them on passive at the time. Now that we have tank though and are pretty fast on most things, maybe I will put the more expensive circuit forms on demand or just on passive. But I don't want to do it for the wetware stuff yet because we're about to get the matter ones. So there's no point in setting up passive these things. We do have room for more passive assembly lines. As over here in the assembly yard, we're only using 2. So we have room for 6 more. And if we do need more, I'll just I can just continue. Sorry, I just tried to point my screen with my hand, but you guys can't see that. Actually, here's a funny thing. If you guys see me like stop moving, it's because I'm talking with my hands, because I do that a lot. Anyway, So I can just extend this pathway down like I did over here for ore processing and just add more passive assembly lines. All of these things are large enough for the maximum size recipe that can go in it. They're actually 17 blocks long, which is larger than the largest possible recipe, but it fits within the machine pad. And also I don't care about the cost. These things are free. Um, finding room for more assembly lines will not be a problem. It'll just be setting them up that'll take some time. So I do have some more things over here that I'll have to do, as there are a bunch of things that we want to put on assembly lines going forward. I think things probably like maybe ZPM motors. I think we'll need to put these on passive for something. I forget why. I think it's for the sensors? Maybe not. I know there was some of these things we wanted to put on passive for something from ZPM, but I forget. I might be gaslighting myself into believing that. But let's see if there's anything else over here. I guess the Omnic Forge. We also built another Omnic Forge for on-demand stuff, and I actually didn't set this one up either. Cosmic did, and it looks fucking fantastic. I love it. I really wanted to use this like pit for something. The problem was we didn't have any good uses for it. I didn't want to like build like that kind of style of like machine pad setup down there and have it like go around the edge of like the pit or whatever. That seemed kind of weird and wouldn't really fit in, and I didn't really want to pave over it because it's a really cool terrain feature. I've been really enjoying spending a lot of time in this base, and trying to incorporate cool terrain features into it. I really love where we built this base. This base was fantastic. There's a lot of really cool things to do around here. I didn't really get to do that in ATM 9, and then getting a chance to do it here is awesome. I won't really get a chance to do it in AMC either, or Animator Chemistry, which will be coming next, because Animator Chemistry is basically Skyblock with extra steps. So I really wanted to, do something over here, and I thought, well, we get like a new little cool fancy orb thing, and in ATM 9 we did build some floating orbs, we built a floating orb. So you know what? I think it looks perfect down here, and we have the glass so you can like see the cave and stuff through it. I think it looks great. I love this area over here. I'm gonna put some more lighting so you guys can when you come down over here without night vision, you guys can see more of the cave and stuff. It'll be super cool. I love this area. This area looks amazing. I do have to say I know that some people don't really like the direction of modern Minecraft, like the higher, no more version, like 1.20 or whatever and 1.21. But I'll tell you what though, terrain generation has gotten so much better over the years. Like I started playing in 1.3.2. And terrain is so much better now. It's crazy. Minecraft has I think, the best procedurally generated terrain of any game ever. Like No Man's Sky, for example, a game I've played a decent amount, is a game that's supposed to be based on procedural terrain generation, and it's not as good as Minecraft. I guess Minecraft does have a lot of that experience though, for literally over a decade at this point of building the game, so they've gotten pretty good at it. And maybe procedural generation with blocks is easier than it is with voxels. I don't know. Anyway, I really enjoy the terrain in this space. We have lots of really cool things like this massive cave. It goes down super deep with like the floating lake and stuff. And we've had where the LCRs are and the microverse projectors are. We've been able to do a lot of really cool things, as well as crisscross. Like the canyons and stuff, as well as like the center island and like the meeting of like a bunch of different canyons and stuff too. We have one river over here that comes from like an underground spring with like this island in the center of the lake and stuff. It's awesome. It's so good. So I've been having a lot of fun, and I'm gonna be kind of sad to see this base go, but I'm also excited to do something new whenever that it comes. What's also really funny, guys, is I built this bridge so long ago. Like we've had this bridge longer than we've had passive EBFs, because we put the passive EBFs across the bridge, and we still have yet to design a bridge support, just because I've had so many other things to do. I've been having a lot of fun doing them. So I might do that soon. I do want to have a bridge support design before I end the pack. The base is in a fantastic state. Cosmic's been doing a great job at doing a lot of the exterior work. Thank you, by the way, Cosmic. Thank you. Has been doing a great job. She's also been doing a fantastic job with doing terraforming and stuff too. As the walls would go a little bit over the edge sometimes, and it looks fucking amazing. I'm really happy with the way the base looks. I think this is probably my favorite base now, which I think is good. I think every base I build so far has almost always been my favorite base at the time. Like I liked AMC better, minus ATM9. I liked AMC better than I liked Mechanical Mastery, and I've liked Monifactory more than I've liked ATM9 and Antimatter Chemistry, and Mechanical Mastery. And I think that's a sign of me getting better at building bases, figuring out what I like, what I don't like, being able to incorporate new things, getting better at building. I think that's really good. I'm trying to think. Oh, you know what, guys? I haven't shown you guys the passive area yet. This is the main passive array, where we passive almost every component that can be tanked. We passive basically every ingot, and lots of other things as well. We passive a bunch of like the stabilized isotopes, plutonium, americium, curium, neptunium. We also passive solidified hydrogen and solidified argon. Both of those things get used in microminer missions a lot. We also passive glowstone here. We used to passive glowstone through HNN, but now there's no point in doing that. We can just solidify it into a block and either grind up the block or just I believe we can just downcraft into it. No, we can't downcraft into it. So we can just we can grind it up for the dust if we have to, which we might. We also what's really funny is there are liquid forms of the empowered blocks you get from combination crafting, so we don't even need combination crafting anymore. Combination crafting was only ever used to make the empowered blocks. Oh, is it not going to give me a recipe? Here, we can do empowered. Then, powered comes from the combination the combination crafting, and the combination crafting is only ever used to make the empowered blocks, which you can turn into their liquid forms and then tank. So we don't actually need that anymore either. Tank's a lot of fun. It's really cool being into like the post resource generation phase for most of the stage in the pack for a lot of things, and that's really cool. Though they are removing tank in the later versions. Even like right now, there's no tank in hard mode and expert mode. Expert mode for sure. Not sure about hard mode. But they're going to be removing tank from normal mode going forward, which, as it is right now, would be bad. Like if the post tank progression for normal mode no longer has tank, that would suck mega hard because omnium is used a lot. It's actually one of the main materials for UEV, I believe. And that would that would really blow. Or it's UIV, I believe. Assembler. No, UEV. It's the main alloy for UEV. So having to get it the way we do now without tank, you have to make motes of omnium with almost every material in the game, and then you have to use that in an implosion compressor to get one fucking nugget. So you have to do 99 of every material in the game, or of not every material in the game, but a lot of materials in the game. It's like what 3, 6, 9, 8, 80 different materials plus the exotic materials catalyst, which is most of the alloys you have available to you. And having to do 3 of all of that per ingot of omnium would suck so much, to the point where I don't even think it would be possible to realistically do that. So they are going to have to change a lot of the post-tank progression. They have the new prismatic forge multi-block, which looks really cool. I don't know, but that's for much later. Maybe I'll come back and play the pack again once it's done. The Monifactory is still in an early beta state, so we still still a lot to do for them, and I am excited to see where it goes. But more over here, we have lots of things on passive here. We have a bunch of ingots, we have plates, double plates, we have foils as well. We have rods, we have rotors, small gears, large gears, normal pipes, rings. We also have bolts. We have large pipes. Uh, these things are extruders, so these things like polyethylene and stuff. So I can actually rip those out from the autoclave area. So we have, bolts as well. We also over here from the lathes, we have, more rods. We have screws. I believe we also have some wire mills over here for fine wire, and then the 16x wire for many, many things. I think most of the wires in the game. I think that's actually all the wires in the game. I don't know if there's like 16x like skulk bioalloy. We have to do netherite, monium. We don't have microversium because that doesn't get used in anything. Besides in making like the actual cables itself, uh, which and like the 1x wires it's kind of a bad material, so we don't actually use that. And that's actually not even fluid solidifiable either. Um, so yeah, we have basically if it can be fluid solidified or even if it's not fluid solidified for like graphene, for instance, we have graphene over here as well. So this is our main resource area, and this was a little bit tedious to set up. I'm not gonna lie. Cosmic did actually most of this. I set up most of the ingot fluid solidifier, and she did pretty much everything else over here. So Cosmic has been making some real big money moves this past week. So thanks, Cosmic. Fantastic work. Fantastic work. Um, I actually had to add some more materials to the EBFs as well. Dark Solarium finally got put on passive over here. Microversium got put on passive. Engraved Crystal Chips they were on passive, but they were on passive in an EBF block that I removed and then forgot about. And I had to quickly put them back over here. We have the Neutronium doped bools. Eventually, we're going to go to the micro or the universe doped bools, um, as I showed before. Um, we have to get Heart of the Universe level emitted, which is something that we can do at soon TM. Lots of things I have to do. More motes of Omnium, which you can fluid solidify. And we have to do the gears. Oh, you have to actually fluid solidify these gears, which makes them literally free. So I guess I'll have to set that up. Um, but yeah, I think that's probably about it. I've been going for quite some time, and I've been a little bit scatterbrained and all over the place, guys. Sorry, I woke up late again. And I woke up like, oh, what year is it? Kind of thing, you know? Oh no, my tea's cold. Shit. Oh well. That's how you know I've been going for a while. Um, try to think. If there's anything more. Uh, I mean, ripped out more machines over here, replaced some, but not really. Um, yeah, I think that's probably about it. Um, so, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys have had a good week. Mine obviously has been quite good. Making some big money moves in the world today, or not today, but over the week. And I hope you guys have a good upcoming week. And I will see you all again next week.